Thank you very much. Sometimes I look around to see the person that is the subject of these grand speeches, and when someone says, this distinguished speaker and your excellency, I'm often taken aback. I'll start in my usual form. You see them flowers, them does flower in the dry season. These hard time bacchanal flowers, them does flower in the dry season. This is a poem written by Sister Gabrielle Mason of St. Joseph's Convent. And I start with it as the theme of my address, flowering in the dry season. It is usual to begin a speech by acknowledging one's specially invited guests. Permit me today, members of the dais, and our other honorable speakers, to flout tradition and to commence in the spirit of one of my most revered writers, Ernest Hemingway, who noted that true nobility lay in those who endeavor to be superior to their former selves. I want to begin first by recognizing and applauding each and every single one of you, graduates of St. George's University. I say this with deliberation because it was almost a baptism, and I read off script here, to just see your faces and to look at the list of so many Grenadians and Caribbean citizens and citizens of the world being conferred this degree this morning. It literally gave me chills. We all stand here this morning because of you on this glorious morning at the confluence of your efforts. You have taken a giant leap. I know all too well from being engaged in my academic pursuits the sacrifices, the upheaval, the toil, the bacchanal that these great leaps require. And for simply making it here today, I'd like to say, let's give a large round of applause to you. Like was previously said, I now acknowledge all of those who supported you in your endeavors. I acknowledge your parents, your family members, your children, your friends, your well-wishers. And I want you to remember, this isn't your degree. This is also their degree. It goes without saying that it is a tremendous honor to be asked to deliver this commencement speech to a cohort of so many, from so many different countries, largely my peers, in so many subjects that are as diverse as they are complex. It means the world to me that I was asked to deliver this speech at home. On the island I was born, in a city where I myself was educated, at this civic-minded university that is my husband's alma mater, and which has leveled the playing field educationally for so many Grenadians. St. George's University, the home of Think Beyond, I thank you profoundly. I salute the good that you do, and today there are more than 200 graduates that will do even more. I have to confess, when the invitation came, I opened the message and I immediately closed the email. It took some time to process the honor of being asked. In accepting, I had to examine and confront my own prejudices. In my own mind, I was not a commencement speaker. I was far removed from anything I imagined it would be. Distant, traditional, senior, definitely male. I'm relatively young. I'm a committed carnivalist and culture woman. I'm a wife. I'm a new mother. And in spite of that, and in spite of myself, here I am. I was also worried because I didn't have a commencement speaker on which to pattern my own address. My graduation ceremony at Cambridge was in impenetrable Latin, I kid you not, and it involved a strange ceremony of rubbing the pinky finger of the senior provost. This morning, I hope the very fact that I'm here today, not someone detached from your realities, will make what I have to say meaningful. If I can be here today speaking to you, each and every single one of you, you belong anywhere you choose. Graduates, I ruminated very long and hard over what I could possibly say. All the best words seemed already to have been spoken, the most poignant stories told on YouTube and TEDx. After much thought, I decided that the best lessons were the one I have gained from my own experiences to date. I felt that my biography gives a gilded impression that I have been floating from the gates of success to success with hardly any challenges. This is very far from the truth. I therefore wanted to spill the tea. I wanted to be completely open and to focus on my beyond the headline struggles, challenges, and failings so that we can all learn from them together today. This is very important to me in an era of Instagram, perfect photography, and carefully curated Facebook content where we share photos and sound bites of our best lives. It's important to recognize and to highlight what I like to refer to as the baptism of the struggle. Our past struggles often provide our best teaching moments. I mean, there must have been times when you may have felt that you were failing this degree, you were failing your investment, you were spending a lot of money, you weren't seeing where it was going, you were sacrificing your family time, you were dedicating too many resources to it, and you may have wondered whether you were making the right decision, whether you were smart enough, are you good enough, are you going to finish, or are you going to crumble? The fact that you are here today ties in with my overall message, that we should use all of our challenging moments to plan and to shape our future. As you may have already gleaned, I have a great love for my culture. And so I make the 3 lessons that I have gained by reference to 3 Grenadian sayings that have woven themselves into the tapestry of my life thus far. I don't know if you've heard them before. The first one, where the cow tie, there it have to grease. This saying used to amuse me a lot as a child, and it tended to have a negative connotation, meaning that individuals should be expected to take or plunder items from their environments. I adopt it positively. I do not entreat you to do that. It makes me realize that we should accept our circumstances and nourish ourselves from them. There are a few people here from the community where I was born, but for those of you who don't know, I was born in Victoria. When I was born, it was the smallest, it was the most economically challenged parish in Grenada. It probably still is. Victoria used to be known at the time of French colonization as Grand Pauvre, great poverty. At the time when I was born, the adjacent village of Coast Guard had the highest teenage pregnancy rates in the entire Caribbean. I was raised by a single-parent mother without the help of my father in a quiet but very lively town. I attended the local government pre-primary school and primary school. My class sizes were over 40. Our final year classes took place in an assembly hall separated by blackboards. We were taught on a diet of fare and a thick leather belt. My house faced a popular rum shop. I completed all my studies in the daily opera of their lives on a kitchen table. I could hear everything. Cable TV did not run to my area until I was of secondary age. We didn't have a car. We didn't have much, save for love and heart, and by all accounts, it would have been very easy to turn out to be a statistic. From that very village, studying on that very kitchen table, I managed to achieve everything that I have achieved in my life so far. And many people ask how I managed to do that. I believe, however, that a large part of my success stemmed from never seeing my circumstances as a disadvantage. I was shaped and formed by my surroundings and the tremendous support from family, teachers, and my village. And I digress. I see Mr. Cole Phillip here. When I was studying for O-levels, I was doing 9 CXC subjects, and to get the Marischal Cup, you had to do 10. And she met me in the quadrangle in confidence. She said, you're taking history. You're not taking chemistry? And I said, no, because I really like history. I'm a culture woman. And she said, I'll teach you history. So out of her own steam, around classes, while she was doing her PhD, Miss Phillip, took it on herself to teach me history. So I just want to recognize her this morning. And it's stories like that that really inspire me, because through my upbringing in Victoria and in convent, I cultivated humility and pleasure in simple things. I grew to value the importance of family, community, and I learned to survive and to thrive in less than ideal environments. I gained tenacity and resilience. In essence, I had to graze where I was tied. Cultivating this attitude of accepting my circumstances was a valuable life lesson. And today, I recognize, and I want to implore you to recognize that value of metaphorically grazing where you are tied. After your degree, you may not be placed in the most advantaged circumstances. You may have to start small. You may believe that you're at a disadvantage in terms of the opportunities and your circumstances. It would be a mistake, however, to believe you cannot blossom, bloom, complete, and surpass your expectations from exactly where you are. It is telling that many of the world's most famous billionaires and philanthropists came from very humble backgrounds. The Starbucks founder, Howard Schultz, he grew up in a housing complex for the poor. He's now worth $2.9 billion. The same Jan Koum, founder of WhatsApp, which we use all the time. The lesson is a profound one. We can all emerge better from our circumstances, no matter what they are, and move forward and build successful, impactful lives. The second saying, where horse reach, donkey must reach. All things considered, this generally means that the faster, the swifter, the more graceful animal will get to the same destination as the animal that is stubbornly plodding along. Now, I'm not calling any of you donkeys. It would be hubris to think we are horses at the same time. It is limiting and self-defeating to consider ourselves donkeys. But the lesson is there. At various points in our lives, we are horses and we are donkeys. At some tasks or in some situations, we race ahead to the finish line, and in other aspects, it is not as easy. Sheryl Sandberg, in her famous book, Lean In, she described her career as a scrambled jungle gym. It wasn't a ladder. She noted she could not have connected all the dots in her career that led to her success. Her boss, Mark Zuckerberg, was only 7 years old when she graduated from college. She worked for Google, even though the job she was offered sounded less prestigious than others she had applied for elsewhere. Graduates, you have graduated into an era where career inventions and reinventions are par for the course. Serial pursuits are the norm. Jobs are no longer for life. You may have to become doctor influencers, doctors who do lots of other things, Botox, entering into fields that you had never envisaged when you pursued this degree. My grandmother would have called it in patois a pankwai. The day you put your pen down on your final exam script or press print on your dissertation was the same day that it became obsolete. The challenge is now to be part of a growing knowledge economy, working at the top of the production chain. We will all have to commit to lifelong learning, skilling up, and reinventing ourselves, our jobs, and our careers. So back to me. Was I ever a donkey? I definitely felt like the donkey at one stage in my career. I was 17 years old and full of naivety. I decided that it was a brilliant thing to do part of my Cambridge degree in French at master's level in French comparative world law, one of the most difficult subjects with very much a basic command of the language from secondary school. I was stuck in classes of over 1,000 native speakers. I was expected to do an oral examination every term. It was the first time I was about to fail anything academic in my life, and my first grade of 4 out of 10 smacked me in the face rudely. I cried. I was devastated. I could have been defeated, but I had invested too much. I'd come too far to give up. I applied myself extra diligently. I made tremendous sacrifices, including studying on Saturdays, Sundays, whenever I had the time. I made my failure necessary but important in teaching me that lesson. And I then meandered several times in my career as a lawyer. I started off wanting to study human rights law. I quickly found it wasn't necessarily open to me because the successful pursuit of it required unpaid internships in large organizations that I could not afford as a young immigrant student. And then I contemplated going to the English bar. I had the grades, but I found that at my first dinner with barristers, they were much more interested in my background. Where did you study? And what did your father do? And what did your grandfather do? And I was very much put off by that. At the midpoint again of my career as a commercial litigator, it would have been very easy to just plow my way to the top and to keep my head down. But I meandered yet again. I developed an interest in international law, particularly because of my pull to the Caribbean. I wanted to do something impactful that had a Caribbean reach. I wanted to do international work, so I decided to take an LLM at the LSE while having a full-time job, while running a case and being 9 months pregnant, and then having a son. It was difficult. I then made a move in the middle of that to another firm where I could practice both litigation and international law. I am now a solicitor advocate of the Supreme Court of England and Wales. I have the opportunity to work on a wide range of human rights matters alongside my commercial work, and I work on cases involving various aspects of international law. I also practice, as has been said, as a diplomat for Grenada. I say all this to say that your end game may require a few more steps than you think. You might just walk into your dream job with your newly minted degree, or you might not. I say this to demonstrate that if you do not, it is not the end of the world. You sometimes have to take 2 steps back or sideways to take a few steps forward. You may be required to think and to recalibrate your steps if things are not working out in the way that you envisaged. It doesn't mean that you're a failure. As one of my favorite new writers, Naira Waheed, puts it, where you are is not who you are. The last one is my favorite. It's a new one. Don't watch that. This is a recently conjured up saying, but it is so common. It is muttered in response to minor details, transgressions, even facts or details that might upset you, but which, for your own good, you shouldn't dwell on. Somebody bounced you? Don't watch that. I'm passing by, I didn't say good morning? Don't watch that. I forget to invite you to my wedding? Don't watch that, right? The don't watch that mentality has served me well in my career thus far. Had I watched at the statistics that surrounded me and the obstacles that I would have had to surmount to stand where I am today, I would not have even filled out the first form. When I decided to apply to Cambridge in the year 2000, I did not know that less than 8% of students who applied were accepted. I did not know that less than 2% of black students were admitted annually. I was one of 3 black students in my college, and my acceptance would be one of the first for Grenada and for a number of years. Had I looked for... Had I looked at the statistics and the weather, I would have simply given up. The same applies to my decision to work abroad in an international law firm. It would have been very easy for me to return to Grenada, and I still intend to, my favorite place in the world to practice. I knew, however, that I wanted the experience, the breadth of practice that I would obtain in London. But the largest firms have only 8% of lawyers of an ethnic minority, less than half are black, almost none are working class, and the chances of me becoming a senior person in a major firm was less than 0.5%. I calculated it. Various studies were conducted about how poorly black female lawyers like me do in international law firms. There are lots of implicit biases. One firm conducted an anonymous review of an essay. Partners tended to pick up 3 times more errors if they thought it was written by a black person than if it was not. Had I paid attention to these statistics and conversations, I would have quit. I chose, however, largely to ignore the noise around me and to focus on my own end goal of doing work that I enjoyed for people I enjoyed working with and in organizations that shared my values and where I wanted to be. What helped me significantly was accepting that my perception of myself and others' perception of me might be different, and that what mattered was my own perception. It did not change who I fundamentally was. It may be the same for you. At times, even with this degree, you might be underestimated, taken for granted, or even ignored. You may be overlooked for that sought-after promotion. You may not obtain the job for which you were shortlisted or not be given the best work. Others who do not have degrees may get the job that you are seeking. You may find that you have chosen to enter an extremely difficult field, and the pressures of the job and your career cause you to question whether you've made the right choices and decisions. To that person you may become, I say, don't watch that. Your education is but one component of you, and it is more important to focus on who you become than what you attain. Do not let the measure of your success be affected by others' perception of who you are. Who you know you are is so much more important. By the same token, don't give up before you start. The best advice that I can give you is to take a chance on yourself every day. Bet on you. I conclude now, and I wanted to say that I deliberately chose to start and to end on the personal element. This is because I believe change in the individual brings about change in the community, and we should all start with ourselves. But this is very far from the end. In this new era of interconnectedness and globalization, we must all endeavor to live with a greater degree of selflessness, tolerance, respect for each other and our environment. Recognize and celebrate your challenges, and be aware that others have the same challenges. Be kind to each other, be tolerant, and never let darkness prevail. Graduates, I beseech you to go forth in your authentic selves. Bring your light of change to the world. Do not succumb to the shadows of regression or prejudice, and frame your challenges as your finest teachings. Burn bright around the globe as proud agents of change, proud citizens of the world, and proud graduates of St. George's University. Bloom in your dry season. Thank you and congratulations.